Hello. My name is Aniruddha. I welcome you to this YouTube channel of mine where I share all I know about watercolor. The scene I'm painting today is from somewhere in the south of Europe. But what I like about this scene is a sense of familiarity. I mean, since southern European countries had colonies all across the world, this scene could easily be from anywhere. I mean, even in my own city of Bombay, houses like these are quite common in the old Portuguese districts. As I started this process, I didn't exactly know what I was going for. I didn't want it to be a sketch, but I didn't want it to be a painting either. With that in mind, this isn't a technique I've used before, and probably is a technique that I may not use again. So, why am I sharing this? Well, because it was a ton of fun to make. There are hundreds of ways to use watercolor, none of them right or wrong. It always comes down to experimenting and finding your own way with the medium, finding what gives you the most joy. My regular approach, and also the most common approach in watercolor, is to start with the areas of light. However, this time around I'm starting with the shadows. There's a previous video where I do this as well. I will put a link for it in the top right corner. Painting in these shadow shapes is anything but easy. They require the utmost levels of concentration. So the plan was to apply a nice variegated shadow in these small controlled areas. And before these areas dry up completely, also adding in some of the darker elements. I was also very well aware that these areas will dry lighter. When painting like this, at the beginning, your painting appears to have a very cool bias, but that changes once you add in more colors of the light. I keep reminding myself that I need to paint shapes, not objects. These shadow shapes are rather complicated. When faced with such shapes, I prefer having a bunch of different brushes with me to make sure that I can depict the shape accurately. Whether this is a good practice or not, I don't know, but it works for me. My shadow mix is mainly made up of three colors: ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, and hints of yellow ochre. All the materials that I've used in this demonstration are listed in the description below. A friendly mid-video nudge to remind you to do all the YouTube things. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, perhaps even share it to some of your friends who you think might find it interesting. I also wanted to plug in my classes over on Skillshare. If you are interested in full-length detailed watercolor classes, you will find a link in the description below, which will give you 1 month free access to not only my classes but all of Skillshare. As my paintbrushes dance over the paper surface, I am very conscious that I need to leave a sufficient amount of white spaces on the paper. It's always better to err on the side of caution and leave more spaces than needed, because you can always cover them up, but you can never get that white back. As I progress with my process, I will change those white patches into plant pots and drying laundry. I'm lifting some paint from that roof area to give the indication of beams and also build a sense of perspective. I'll now move my attention to the background of the scene. Paint in the sky and some of the warmer, lighter colors. As I move my paint from top to bottom and then right to left, I want to do everything I possibly can to keep that wash connected. Now looking back, I think working on the vegetation at this point in time was an error. It would have been preferable for me to add some of the foreground shadows while that area was nice and damp. I am painting on one of the hottest days of the year. It was 40 degrees. there. It's not spreading out that much. It's still moist, but I wish it was more so. Next, I'm going to put in that shadowy section on the right. I wanted to put this section in wet in bed too, but that ship has long sailed. I'll now put in all those warm green colored plants one at a time. Notice the paint in my palette. It isn't consistently mixed. So each time I go back, I pick up a hue that is slightly different. After the plants, I will move on to the final phases of this painting. All through the process, I kept debating with myself whether I wanted to add fountain pen lines or not. Eventually, I decided that I do want to do that. As I often do, this time too I will be using my Sailor Fude nib pen for the line work. What is important for the line work is variety. This Fude pen allows me to vary my line weight. Along with that, I also vary the length of the lines I'm creating. Some of my lines are shorter, some of them are long, continuous, and connected. The paper I'm using is 100% cotton cold press from Fabriano Artistico. Because of the cold press texture, there is some resistance to the smooth movement of the fountain pen. It takes me a little while to get into the rhythm of using this pen. But once I do, I feel very comfortable with putting down strokes and details rapidly. Everything looks a lot crisper now with the addition of the lines. All the small elements have more definition. Now I'm also using my Jelly Roll white gel pen to add in some of the wires and a few random white marks here and there. I'm going to use some of my brighter colors for that hanging laundry there. One minor error I made is that even though I chose bright colors, I didn't take into account that some of the colors I used are semi-opaque. The semi-opaque nature ends up hiding some of the ink pen marks. That same semi-opaque color is ideal for putting in things like flowers on some of the plants. For that I used my lavender and cadmium red. Next, I turn my attention to the left of the sheet. I'm gonna add a dark shape there to further emphasize the light colored house. To depict the electricity pole there, I put down some white glass cutter's pencil. This pencil is fairly oily in nature, so once I put my watercolor, it's not going to cover that white mark. That's the glass cutter's pencil. Going to use my fingernail to lift out some branches, and we're done. I wish you a lovely rest of your day wherever you are, and look forward to seeing you in the next video.